the time has finally gotten late enough that I have secured an opportunity to talk to you guys. And boy, if there's not a lot to talk about. So, I've been saying for a while now that the United States was going to be ramping up its attempt to do regime change in Iran during the 12-day war in 2025. I thought it was going to happen at some point that summer. I turned out to be wrong about that prediction, but I was right about my overall prediction that this was not going to be ended by the 12-day war, that there were going to be more strikes, that there was going to be more strife in Iran, and that people would continue to saber rattle both about Iran's nuclear capabilities in the future and about the possibility of regime change in Iran. And, well, the stacks are signing up. No, the signs are stacking up. It's crazy. It's wild. It kind of sucks to be this right about something that's so horrible. Military-industrial complex go brr. Yep. And the military-industrial complex has been going brr on this one for a long time. Since the 1979 revolution, the United States and Europe, mostly Great Britain, have really desperately wanted Iran to be under our control. They had been under our control previous to that for the entirety of the Shah's reign. Now it seems like Reza Pahlavi, the old Shah's son, is gearing up to take over the reins of some intermediary Iranian government should the people rise up and decide to depose the IRGC. So, things are moving now. Things are now in motion which cannot be undone. As Gandalf says in Lord of the Rings, things are now in motion which cannot be undone. Jesus loves you. Well, I wish he loved the people of Iran. It'd be nice if he loved the people of Iran enough to spare them from another U.S. military interference and intervention campaign in their sovereign lands. I don't see Reza going anywhere near Iran. I hope their tyrannical government is overthrown, but Reza shouldn't have anything to do with the next government. He will. I agree that he shouldn't. But Reza Pahlavi is a snake. He is a python of a man. Reza Pahlavi will ally with whatever administration he thinks he needs to and will pursue whatever path he thinks is available to him to consolidate power in Iran if he's able to. That's one of the reasons why he has remained in such close contact and confidence with the resistance movement insofar as one exists over there. Insofar as a resistance movement exists in Iran, a lot of it is kind of like pushed from the outside by people like Reza Pahlavi. But Reza is one of those people that is not partisan to American politics. He is useful both to the Republicans and the Democrats. Hello, Nanbot. Hello, Nanbot, my old friend. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. It really does help. You know that. By now, you ought to know that. You like a thumb? Hot thumb. So, now the question in a lot of people's minds becomes, what happens next? Oh, look at that. 4 months of Dark Cardinal status membership. Much love. Thank you, Autumn. Much love to you. That's what we love to see. You guys should really sign up for that membership, by the way, because when we're having conversations like this and these vertical streams, that's one of the best ways to make sure that your comment gets read. once we keep more than 100 people in here for 30 seconds or more, we'll start talking about the greater implications of the U.S.-Israeli strikes against Iran and further plans. I've got interesting updates I want to share with you guys that I was reading in the news, but it's responsible to ask you guys to wait for just a minute for some more people to wander in here. It's kind of like when the steak shop first opens, like when the if you've got like a really nice steakhouse in your town, it probably doesn't open until 4 p.m. and between 3:30 and 4, there's always a big line of people getting ready to crowd into the establishment. Are you unhappy about the strikes against Iran? Yeah, and I feel like one of the only Americans who is. I don't like the jihadi regime in Iran. I don't like the fact that it's ran by religious fundamentalists who would probably see me hanged. But I also don't like the idea of US and Israeli weapons being used to destroy that country, depose their leader, and install one that's friendly to us. This tactic hasn't worked out well for us in the past. When we did it in the 1970s, or was it the 80s? I believe it was the 1980s. When we did it in the 1980s for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, it ended up resulting directly the in creating the atmosphere that led to people like Osama bin Laden and his co-conspirators to being able to access the training, funds, equipment, etc., necessary to establish dominance in Afghanistan, and then to plan things like the World Trade Center bombings, the Tunisian embassy bombings. We went over and fought a 20-year-long insurgent war against the Taliban, and they fought us with the very weapons we'd supplied to them during the 80s. You can go look into it. You just regurgitate your propaganda. Sounds like projection. I'm actually talking real shit here. When I say we, I mean America as a nation state. I'm including myself as part of America, as a broad political actor, when I say we. Smoke some more weed. This is actually a spliff. It's just rolled in a cone. Anyway, so Israel and the United States conducted strikes against Iran last night. I guess it was technically like morning time for the people of Iran. I went through this weird kind of thing where when I was reading the news about it before I went to bed, and legit, it was the first news story I saw as soon as I stopped streaming. So it's just a miracle that nobody brought it up while I was actually going. But I had this weird moment where I was like, damn, that fucking sucks. Imagine just being like in the middle of the night and you wake up to bombs. I honestly brought to mind me thinking about what the people of Caracas must have went through back in January. But then I realized, oh wait, they're like 8 hours ahead of us. So it was actually like morning time, which is, I guess, better than bombing in the middle of the night. If you're going to bomb a sovereign nation, you might as well give them enough time to drink a cup of coffee beforehand. But it's still pretty fucked up. And in doing so, we have basically like started a new I don't know how else to put it. We've started a new Gulf War, folks, and we have created a new regional conflict in the Middle East, which will probably go on fighting for another couple of years after we pull out. Who knows? Maybe the U.S. strikes against Iran will end tomorrow. Maybe we'll hear the last news of them tomorrow. Maybe Trump will come on TV and tell everybody, make sure you know, like he'll make sure the American people know that these strikes are done. But something tells me that's not going to happen. Something tells me that these strikes are going to last a number of weeks. And then after that, Iran is going to continue lashing out against its neighbors who have allowed United States military bases into their country. And it's going to create a rolling geopolitical conflict in that region that is not going to be fixable effectively by anybody or any international body. and we're going to have to deal with the fallout from it, and with the considerable pressure on the American taxpayer to continue funding the military-industrial complex so we can supply even more guns to Israel in the wake of a war that we created. You ready for that? It's it's the early 2000s all over again. Literally. It's my childhood all over again. By the way, there's some people. Oh, I'll get to that thought in a minute. Let's see. Let's super chat. There will no doubt be retaliation here in America. That's what I fear. This is another forever war over nothing. Netanyahu's been lying since 1983. That's pretty much how I feel as well. Bullet X Dame, thank you for the $5. I appreciate that a ton. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is going to be a one and done, simple couple of strikes. It's already been more than that. I don't know if you guys understand. This, like what has happened in the last 24 hours, has already been bigger than what happened last year. You guys realize that? Iran didn't actually manage to spill any blood in the conflict last year. Equipment only. Iran's got a death count already. Iran's already got a head count going. And we're not even 48 hours into the conflict. This will be more intense than what happened last year. And this will be more intense than like the last few years of fighting you saw in Afghanistan. I'm telling you guys, this is a return to an earlier era of politics. This is like one of my red lines I've brought up for a long time is like, when does Trump officially become worse than Bush? Right now. Now. Presently. This is that red line. You don't know what you're talking about in all caps isn't actually an argument. If you had anything substantive to say to me in response, you would type it out with a cogent comment that had a little meat on the bone for me to respond to. By the way, how's MAGA feeling about this new little forever war that Trump's launching in the Middle East at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu? How's that for the anti-war president? How's that for an anti-war president? Yeah, here's the thing. I understand there's tons of people in Iran who are ready for regime change. And you know what? If they want regime change so bad, well, then, I don't know, man. Maybe they should fucking, like, engage in an organized campaign to disempower the regime. If there's that many fucking people, like, it does not take that many people to really destabilize even a really tough regime. Like, honestly, Iran's strong, um, Iran's strong tradition of protest and public demonstration, I think, bites it in the ass when it comes to actual organizing for something better. Because it's apparent to me that this pattern of mass protest does nothing but like destabilize the country and like make them a bigger target and stuff like that. I personally wonder because I see these huge movements and they've got thousands and thousands of people. They kill thousands of people, and then that's only like a tenth of sometimes of a percent of the people that were actually protesting. So I know there's like millions of people in that country that don't like the regime, that don't like the authoritarian tendencies of the government, and I just don't know. I don't understand why they don't engage in like coordinated strikes and boycotts and denials of service and things like that, because that would be a different tactic that would be a lot harder to repress and a lot easier to create martyrs out of. I don't know. Maybe I'm, I guess I'm speaking from a position of white Western privilege, talking as a white trans girl in America, trying to tell Iranians how to do their politics. But it just seems like the mass protest angle just doesn't work there against the regime. And I am in support of the regime being changed, just not by force. Not by force of Western powers, because I see how that ends up. And I know what kind of leader they're going to install. Regime change at the hands of the Iranians, cool and based. Regime change at the hands of the Israelis and the Americans, death. Wait, so what's happening though? Is there a war or something going on? Yeah, so for anybody not aware, the United States and Israel have, as of last night and into today, and I think it's still going on right now, they've been shelling Iran, and Iran's been shelling back. What that means functionally is that we've been hitting them with airstrikes, with cruise missiles, drones, things like that, and so has Israel, and Iran's been responding in kind, basically. So, yeah, there's a war on right now. Iran's already managed to blow up some shit in Tel Aviv, which is one of those cities that's supposed to be like ultimately protected by the Iron Dome. It's funny how like effective they'll talk about that system being, but then they'll also, on the other hand, point to incidents like this where the defenses fail, and it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't fucking keep being like a complete hypocrite on this. I don't know. Seems pretty simple to me. It's easy to have an opinion about things that don't affect you. This does affect me, though. The upswing of tensions in the Middle East and the introduction of another forever war is even more incentive for the military-industrial complex to take more taxes out of my paycheck. So I resent that comment. If you're calling me a he, number one, fuck you. But number two, I've lived 27 years worth of life. Seems like it's enough to have a basic opinion on a number of topics. Democrats do that by themselves. Oh, make no mistakes, the Democrats would be bombing Iran too. When Kamala Harris was asked on 60 Minutes who our greatest geopolitical enemy would be, she responded unequivocally, Iran. Instantly. No, didn't have to think about it for a second. Iran. And then, when asked if she would completely write off the possibility of attacking Iran or doing regime change in Iran specifically, she said, basically, I can neither confirm nor deny. She skirted around the question like a black swan dancer and left the 60 Minutes interviewer genuinely baffled that she would answer a question, especially in such a tight race where you've got one. The Democrats did nothing to win last year. Literally nothing. They were fighting against, on the Republican side, somebody who was claiming to be anti-war. Most of us knew it was bullshit, but he was claiming to be anti-war. The rhetorical battle matters. And I think the Democrats have completely given up on the rhetorical battle and are now relying on a strategy of elitism that presumes that the people, if sufficiently intelligent, will simply vote their way by consequence. I'm sorry, that's not, like, you got to convince people. Did you eat Ayatollah Khameini? I asked for his corpse, but they denied me. Why can't they focus on the subject matter? Because to a lot of people, the geopolitical topics that I want to talk about are not all that interesting. Like, there is an audience for this type of content, but I'm still working to draw in that audience. Pretend girl? Bold. You're funny as fucking real as hell. Hey, see? Somebody digs me. Somebody out there in the sea of people. But yeah, there's basically a war going on. I mean, as of right now, it's just being called like everything else the U.S. military does ever since, what was the last declared war? Probably Vietnam. So since like, I don't know, the 90s, we really haven't engaged in any declared wars. We just engage in limited combat operations or major combat operations or something like that. But we don't describe it in terms of war. It's one of the many propaganda tools we have here in the United States to cover up our war crimes and our crimes against humanity. You look like Sonny Bono? No, I do not. I do not look like Bono. They say our love can't pay the rent. Before we're paid, our money's all been spent. Well, I don't know if all that's true, but you got me, and baby, I got you. What war crimes? You realize engaging in a war of aggression is literally a war crime, right? You realize that's literally illegal, right? What makes you a female? I'm not a female. That's a biological term. Like, biologically, I'm assigned male at birth. But what makes me a woman is the fact that I identify as one, the fact that I dress as one, the fact that I have like a feminine haircut. And what determines the femininity of these things? Collective decision. It's the culture we live in. I would have a different way of expressing femininity if I were a trans woman who'd grown up in India, or a trans woman who grew up in, uh, I don't know, Far East Asia, or like a trans woman who grew up in Africa or South America. There are very different ideas of femininity depending on where you're at in the world. And luckily for me, I was born as a trans woman in the United States. There's really only like 3 or 4 places where a trans woman would end up looking something like me, and it's pretty much the United States, Canada, Britain, well, the whole British Isles, Ireland included, and maybe like some sections of Western Europe. There might be more countries than that, but like there's like an androgynous kind of theme that I think you can like tap into as a woman in these places that doesn't necessarily come as readily if you're from certain other cultures. At least that's my perception. Tehran just looks like my city. Late images eerie. I know, really, it is crazy. Well, that's the thing. Every other country that America's bombed in recent memory, in all of our recent memory, has been some backwards shithole that nobody really cared about beforehand, that doesn't produce a whole lot economically. I mean, if you look at Afghanistan, it's a country that functionally can't be governed. So it's a country that functionally cannot develop, like fundamentally. Like, obviously, that's not to say there aren't cities in Afghanistan. There obviously are, but like there's a reason why there is a rural, nomadic, and kind of like um, there's a reason why there are still rural villages all over Afghanistan where sheep herding and like nomadic herding are still like a regular practice. And it's because the terrain of Afghanistan makes it kind of hard to govern, just as a rule. And it's also like never really had an opportunity to fully like industrial develop without interference from somewhere. So, like, you look at our actions against Afghanistan, and it's a lot harder to relate. It's the same thing with Palestine. You look at pictures of Palestine, and it's hard to even connect that to what happened there because it just looks like a ruin. You've seen it in movies too many times to really emotionally, empathetically connect with what's going on there. But if you look at a picture of Gaza from like 10 years ago, and then you compare it like that same street today, it's night and day. It instantly restores that sense of, oh my God, this is what was lost. But there are not a lot of examples like that out there. And even if there are examples like that, you have to go out and look for them. Iran is an example of a country that, like, we're actively watching it be turned to rubble. Or at least we're watching some Western powers attempt to turn it to rubble. And that is going to make everybody's sympathy centers scream in consternation. I'm going to go ahead and enable idiot mode. So if you want to keep chatting, hit the subscribe button. I'm not going to make you subscribe for like 20 minutes or whatever, but just hit that subscribe button. You'll still be able to chat. This will just prevent most of the spam bots and things like that from getting through. and hopefully we'll have something like a cogent conversation I can respond to. Not taking up for Israel, but, not taking up for Israel or the U.S., but you do understand that Iran is celebrating in the street that the Ayatollah was killed. Well, I was talking about this earlier, how regime change under the Iranian people is based, red-pilled, and epic. But regime change at the behest of Western powers must be opposed. Regime change with the heavy assistance of Western powers must be opposed. And I really fucking think that you shouldn't trust any. There's a problem with the fucking the resistance movement in Iran, which is that there genuinely are a lot of people in the resistance movement in Iran. Not that many, but there's enough of a critical mass of them that want Reza Pahlavi back as Shah, that one could make the argument that maybe that's just the will of the people and that it just happens to be someone who's Western aligned already. Maybe that's just what they want for themselves. But the problem I have with that is that that's the same exact rhetoric that every fucking warmonger against the Middle East has used for the last 50 years. Oh, they want freedom and democracy. That's why they're killing our installed leader that was installing American freedom and democracy and installing an Ayatollah, you know? I feel like if our strategy worked, if that strategy worked, if installing a Shah and manufacturing the consent of the people by manipulating a mass of people that are in support, if that worked, why didn't it work in the 50s when we deposed the duly elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, and installed the original Shah? Why didn't it work then? What do you think this means for the rest of the world? Well, it means the Middle East is going to be a lot less stable for a long time. Part of the only reason why I think the Gulf states and the Arab states and the Middle East in general has been evolving in the direction it has, and why there's been a relative sense of stability there, is because Iran, because it's seen as a counterforce to Israel. I feel like there's less motivation for some of these countries that used to engage in more direct acts of their own intervention against Israel and shit like that, or acts of terrorism, have stopped doing it as much because they feel like, well, Iran's taken up the torch. And with Iran gone, or with its government replaced with a Western-friendly government, well, the governments in the Middle East that are already Western-friendly will be fine with that. They'll see that as an improvement, obviously. But the governments in the Middle East that are not Western-friendly, or that are Western-friendly out of convenience, but that have really always shown that they're closer allies of their own locality or whatever, I believe it's going to cause some retaliation in that region, further destabilization. I think it's another forever war. I think that the destabilization that's going to be seen over the next couple of weeks is going to justify a continued military presence in Iran from the US and Israel for fucking an indefinite amount of time. As long as it takes for people to finally get so sick of fighting that they give up for a few years until another atrocity is committed against them. I love that. I'm the fucker watching a propaganda news station that's showing them nothing but footage of people celebrating, telling me I'm watching nothing but propaganda news stations. Bitch, I have read one or two articles about this, and the rest of the information I've gotten has been by looking at translated tweets written in Farsi on the fucking trending tab for Iran under latest. Atabar and SLC, Iran on TV, I hear. Is that here? Oh my god, dude. Holy shit, Riley. Salt Lake City is a shithole. That's just further evidence of it. Thank you for the $2. By the way, you guys have raised tonight. That is freaking awesome. And I wish I thought of a content goal to offer you guys, because maybe we could make some big bucks tonight. But it is the last day of the month, so if you guys want to spoil me. No, this isn't new. I'm not trying to make out like this is new, but this is an escalation that's been coming for a long time, and everybody's kind of been wondering when it was finally going to happen, and now it finally has happened. The Ayatollah's been killed. The U.S. has carrier strike groups closely, monitoring and positioned around Iran. Like the Strait of Hormuz is being closed. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, things are now in motion that cannot be undone. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. Literally, when it is staring you in the face, you'll still well, I don't like him or myself, so whatever he did is bad. What are you talking about? What are you going on about? Actually provide substantial evidence, you dumb fuck, by 300 seconds or get. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, there's people protesting in the streets. There's people fucking celebrating the death of the Ayatollah, but there's tons of people fucking mourning too. This idea, and once again, I feel like I need to call this out specifically. This is a propaganda narrative. The idea that the people of Iran are universally allied against the Ayatollah and the mullahs in general and their theocracy, that's a myth. It's a propaganda myth designed to sell more weapons to Israel. Literally. It is a propaganda myth. It is not real. The whole reason why the IRGC remains in power, the whole reason why the Ayatollahs and mullahs control Iran is because they have a critical mass of support in that country. That's the whole reason why they were able to come to power in the first place. And while it is true that many of the old guard of that administration are aging out, they have trained a whole new generation of dedicated jihadis to take their place. And I don't know about you, call me a fucking libertarian from the early 2000s, but why are we fucking with this place? What do we owe Israel functionally? Like, the only reason Iran's fucking attacking them is because they attacked fucking Iran. The only reason Iran's ever attacked Israel is because Israel has attacked Iran. And the only reason why the Ayatollah ever came to power in the fucking first place is because we installed a Western-backed leader from amongst the fucking royal family of Iran, which had been reduced to basically the status of the monarchy in Britain. And that Western-backed power, using our CIA training, our law enforcement training, started locking people up in secret prisons, torturing people, doing all the crazy shit that we accuse Middle Eastern governments of doing now. And it was a Western-backed government that we liked and trained. And the people revolted against it, and they were able to take power, and a massive upswell of support. And it has only been through the excesses of that clerical government and its own uses of torture and abuses of government power that there has started to become like a sizable resistance movement in Iran. But you need to understand, that's like a third of the country, at best. Okay? Now, to be fair, the people I think are ideologically driven by the same Wahhabism and 12er Shia fucking strict fucking interpretation that drives the mullahs. I think that those are also just like a third of the population. I think there's probably a third that's just like normal people that don't give a fuck, that are just trying to make a living and live and survive. So please stop playing it up like there's some giant crowd of fucking celebrations going on for the Ayatollah's death. I'm sure there's some going on in limited pockets of Iran, but it is not the overall vibe of the country. Sure, I'll look at your chat history real quick. Pink Fur, you've been here a long time. You've always got productive things to say. Make sure you all hit that like button, by the way. Thank you for the 99 cents, by the way. Phoebe, you predicted this last month, unfortunately. This is so bad. I feel bad for the kids who lost their lives to school today. You have a good understanding of what's going on. You unfortunately predicted this last month. I feel bad for the kids. Yeah, 100%, dude. I don't even remember predicting it, but That's the thing. I just read the fucking news and look back at history and what America's done and what this administration's done, the people in power. Like, critical analysis will take you so fucking far in this world. But I appreciate it. Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for saying I'm right, or that I was right. Do you believe in God? No. If there's a God, why does he sit back and watch as his children all fight amongst each other? You realize Jews, Muslims, and Christians all profess to believe in the same exact fucking God? What do you or who do you believe in? I believe in ideas, and I occasionally put a little hope or investment in people. And I believe in people personally. If I know someone, I believe in that person, if I think that they're worthy of that commendation. But as far as like politicians, like, you need to treat every politician like they are a public servant who is sent there to do a specific job that they campaigned on or that they swore an oath to or whatever, and that the basic upholding of those duties is nothing to commend, that it's going above and beyond that call of service that is worth the commendation. Um, you really have to be careful when you believe in a politician, because you will start to make wild arguments and you will start to justify horrible things that they're doing or mistakes that they make. You'll make bad arguments and you'll make yourself look kind of insane doing it. Just look at all the people who defend Trump rabidly. They don't need to. What do these people personally gain from defending Trump? You know, like, and you can also look at it like the people who were like, vote blue no matter who last year about Kamala. Like, what do they personally get from defending Kamala Harris's character? What do you personally get from defending Donald Trump's character or their policies or anything else? Like, wrong is wrong no matter who does it, right? Well, apparently not anymore. Defending Trump is owning the libs. Exactly. Well, that's the thing. There's an operative mindset here that, if you're not aware of it, will trip you up and kind of confuse you. And it's that there are conservatives still to this day. I talk with a lot of them as regulars in my chat that still believe in something. At the end of the day, no matter what else you want to say about them, they believe in something. Fiscal conservative policy, conservative social policy, or something, right? Or some combination thereof, usually. Or maybe they believe in social liberalism, but they're really fiscally conservative. There are people that genuinely believe in things and ideas that exist on the right. But when it comes to like the rabid Trump supporting MAGA movement, those people don't believe in a goddamn thing except getting laughs, getting kicks, owning the libs. That's basically their job. That's what they see as their duty in life. It is the only thing that drives them. It's the only thing that gives them meaning. So whatever position they have to take to do that is what position they take. It's one of the reasons why literacy is such a fucking important thing to advocate for just in your everyday life. Like, you should encourage people to read. You really should, because it will advance their understanding so much. Of course, people are bored and just trying to get a rise out of every little political thing when they don't know anything. Like, they haven't read enough to understand like the complex machinations that underlie every part of their life. What do you think about Charlie Kirk? I think he was a backwards, bigoted moron who nevertheless did not deserve to be shot dead like a dog on the street. As a leftist who trends towards a pacifistic to the last moment kind of bent, I don't think propaganda of the deed in the form of assassination is ever truly effective. I think it has a polarizing effect. And in fact, if you look at history, it tends to have the opposite of its intended effect. The assassinations of Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King Jr. were both done by white supremacists who believed that they would squash the civil rights movement by destroying one of their most prominent leaders. And neither of their deaths had that effect. In fact, it was a rallying cry in both instances. It did not have a silencing effect on the movement. It had a rallying effect on the movement. Which is the same thing that the assassination of Charlie Kirk's dumbass did. Instead of making MAGA afraid or, enacting some sort of like sick revenge, it really just polarized people against the left and polarized the right against each other, polarized people on the left against each other, just polarized the whole goddamn country, really. And I would be willing to bet you that whoever killed Charlie Kirk, they probably didn't do it because they were trying to destroy the country. Charlie Kirk didn't get shot. That's the most retarded conspiracy theory I've ever heard in my life. There's literally like so many different angles of him dying, and they all show the exact same information, dude. Have you seen videos of Iran in the 70s? Yeah, it was a fully functioning democracy. You know what underlaid that fully functioning democracy? Horrible torture camps, CIA black sites that we helped set up and train them on. We didn't care enough about that country to set up a functional government. We wanted a government that would mirror American interests and produce an atmosphere conducive for American workers to come in and help with the extraction of Iranian resources. That's what we wanted out of Iran. And because that's what we wanted out of Iran, we wanted it in what we saw as the most efficient and ideal way. And because America is, at its core, a pretty fascist country itself, that has really only been prevented from being more fascist by the will of its voters and the strength of its institutions, we set up a police state, basically, where you were allowed to be all kinds of democratic. You were allowed to advocate for all kinds of things, as long as it wasn't against the regime. And that is where America fucked up. We would have been way better off making sure that our Western-backed leader that we were installing had no torture camps, had no training to do torture camps, had no intention to do torture camps. We would have been way better off intervening when evidence came out that that was what was happening, because we knew about it for years before the fucking revolution. On something from preventing Iran from becoming a shithole, we had already intervened in the country. If we're going to jump the shark to the point where we've agreed that we're intervening in this country, we could have done a number of things to make sure that that country didn't become a shithole. We didn't care enough. We didn't give a fuck about their democracy. We gave a fuck about their oil. We gave a fuck about having a conducive environment for American workers to work in. We cared about their oil. And that is all we cared about, which is why Iran collapsed and fell to a fucking regime that was just as torturous, but had way more populist support. That's what happens, man. That's why playing this game of foreign interventionism is such a dangerous and silly and stupid thing to do. Because I don't believe that it ever has positive outcomes. What do you think is going to happen here in North America? Somebody said earlier that they think an attack is likely on American soil. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. But I do think that Iran is going to continue to retaliate. I just think they're going to do it locally. As far as here in North America, I don't think anything's going to happen, really. Like, that's one of the reasons why America's been able to be so bold, is because we, as a country that takes up most of a continent, we have, and most of our landmass is habitable too, unlike Canada. Canada also takes up like more than half of a continent, but fucking, you know, how much of it is usable, right? America, all of it's usable. And we are separated from our global neighbors by tremendous oceans. Because of that, America can be and has been able to be bold on the world stage for a long time in a way that other countries simply can't do. If Russia wants to attack one of its neighbors, it's attacking with whom it shares a border. America, we've only got two neighbors, and as long as we don't attack them, we can attack anybody. And what are they going to do? You have to have very sophisticated technology to cross the oceans. With like munitions, you have even more sophisticated technology to get through our missile defenses and shit. And our Coast Guard and the various like sat navs and all the fucking shit we've got going on at any point in time to monitor for threats like that. It puts America in a position that no other country on earth is in. No other country I can think of. And it's why America's been able to be so fucking rigidly imperialist compared to a lot of other countries. We're just, you know, we're protected by the world's biggest moats. No, I don't believe in God. I'll be back in 1 second. Alrighty, we're back. Sorry, giant shipment of anchovies overturned immediately outside my driveway, and I had to scoop up a couple for later. I couldn't let that opportunity pass me by. I could smell them bitches wafting in through the rafters. Yeah, way. W mods for not censoring opinions I don't agree with. Dude, I bet if I look through the chat history of this whole chat, I could find 17 motherfuckers saying the exact opposite of that because they were saying something that was spam and it got deleted, or they are defending someone who was spamming something stupid and it got deleted. Like, Jesus Loves You gets deleted pretty much automatically out of here unless you make it more complicated than that. Because I'm just sick to death of like fielding the question. It's not even a question. It's a speed bump. It's a non-comment. It's, why are you even typing that? Like, what is the point? Like, I'm way too white to be a Sentinel Indian, not to mention the American accent and the perfect command of English. So, do you really think I've not heard the good news by now? I'm clearly a fucking American. If you confuse me for anything else, I don't know how. Oh God. Oh man. That's probably gonna hurt. Oh, dude, I hate being in my late 20s. It's starting to happen. The slow collapse of my body functions. What the fuck was that? Whatever. Ah, man. It doesn't hurt now, but it was a pop and something shifted on my leg. And it felt like the kind of thing that if it had happened while I was standing, I would have fucking like. I would have fallen like Mitch McConnell if that had happened while I was walking. You guys ever seen that footage? Oh my god, I think I've watched it on stream before, but we got to watch it again sometime. Mitch McConnell walking through the fucking Senate or some shit, some hall, like lobby area, and some reporter is asking him questions about Gaza, and he looks at her like, I can't even do it, and then pretty much immediately trips over his own feet and just like collapses face first, and then gets up and then looks at her and he goes, oh, why no? Motherfucker is cooked. Oh fuck. Violence erupts when communication stops between two sides. That's a Daryl Davis maxim, isn't it? That show is a lot of helicopters. Huh. I just want to I just want to know why fucking military formations have been flying over America. No biggie. Is that okay? Am I allowed to ask? When I was about if I lived in New Mexico, I know for a fact I would see shit and people in my family would see shit that I would just have to explain like, yeah, the military test shit out here. We kind of live on the edge of like a, military testing range, but not all of it is used most of the time. People don't realize just how much space in New Mexico is taken up by that damn fucking, like, people do not realize how much land of New Mexico the federal government owns. Like, the whole middle of that state is basically a missile testing and, like, artillery testing field. So are we looking at the full destruction of Iran or just a puppet leader, then a vacuum of power into something even worse? I think we're looking at as much destruction of Iran as it takes to incite the people to violence sufficient to get them to radicalize behind an opposition leader. I don't think it's going to work, so I think that eventually the plug will be pulled on it before that regime change is actually fully achieved. The destabilizing effect is what I'm most worried about. The regime change is, I think, likely, but I don't know if it will be this conflict that installs it. I feel like there's still too many people that look around at Iran and they're like, well, how bad can the mullahs be if we've gotten this far on religious rule, And the presence of big crowds of mourners is another sign towards that mindset. Now, we do know that there is a big movement of people that live in Iran and are actively against the government, but I don't think it's like half the people. I would say it's probably like a third. And I think it's going to be I just think it's going to need to be more than that, or they're going to have to try a different strategy. And I don't know that this will be the destabilizing force, but it might be. If I had to guess, though, Middle Eastern countries and populations tend to react pretty uniformly to being shelled by Western powers, and that is to unite amongst themselves with whatever the current power structure is against the outside aggressor. I think it's best summed up. I feel like this attitude is best summed up by an old Bedouin proverb. I against my brother, I and my brother against my cousin, I, my brother and cousin against the world. They don't put the in there, obviously. But it basically means, like, when it comes to internal divisions, those are good and part of the process for getting anything done, and for like, and to some degree it's just kind of like human nature too. But ultimately it's an attitude thing that doesn't necessarily I don't know that it's like shared by every other country, but I feel like it is one of those ways in which that, like, we have a similarity with the Middle East. It's one of the many similarities we share with that region. Um, I feel like Americans are kind of that same way, or at least we used to be. And I get the feeling we still would be. 9/11 makes me feel like we still would be. Like, we were pretty much like the entire country there for a while was ready to go to war with anybody with a desert. You know, we were ready to go to war with any country that has a sizable desert in it, basically, for a while. And that bloodthirst was directly tied to 9/11, and it created a sense of national unity. I don't know that something like that could happen today, but I like to think that that sort of national unity would still happen. Problem is, it normally coalesces into violence under situations like that. Um, but given that I can relate to that impulse just within my own people, I can see how that impulse, having originated in the Middle East, like, at least having been codified by Middle Eastern scholars first, I can imagine that that mindset probably plays into the response to a big bombing event like this. So I don't know that this will be like enough of a destabilizing force. I guess it depends on how long it goes on, how much of the IRGC do they decide to take out. I mean, if they want to do a complete decapitation and make a power vacuum to where regime change has to happen, like, they're going to have to kill thousands of people, thousands upon thousands. And I'm talking just hardliners. Even if you're just going after the hardliners, they're gonna have to kill thousands of people, and unless they want to shell whole fucking civilian population centers like they were doing in Gaza, or carpet bomb, that's gonna take a long time. So I guess the answer depends ultimately, and the reason why I'm waffling on this so hard and have lost all my viewers is because we don't know exactly what the US's plans are yet and what Israel's plans are, because they're really calling the shots on this, in my opinion. I think it's like a joint effort between Trump and Netanyahu. Um, it, it right now, I really do feel like it hinges on to what extent they want to go. Do they want to go for the whole taco? Like, do they want to fucking take it to, like, regime change point? Because Trump has been talking it up a whole like, he's literally been using that language too, which originated as leftist language critical of the idea of people going in and just, like, putting in their own puppet. I think the United States in particular is just so lucky. We had a chance for a good while there to advance with no one around us to fuck with us. How much of that goes into the lasting peace America has with other countries? I don't know. I think Netanyahu will go as far as he can within Trump's administration. He may not have this power next time around. Yeah, I mean, I would not be shocked if this, like, Iran war thing lasts literally for years. And I would not, dude, you say he wouldn't get along with it. A different, yes, he would. Yes, he would. I'm sorry. I just have to say it. Unless the Democratic Party fundamentally changes, or the Republican Party fundamentally changes, one of the two parties is going to have to fundamentally shift on the issue of Israel, because it is one of those areas where you will find bipartisan agreement on the idea that Israel needs to be preserved and that its national security is our national security and all this shit. You will hear Democrats that have argued for incredibly leftist things make the same Zionist arguments that hardcore Republican Trumpers make. It's a disease in American politics which afflicts both sides. And I do not believe, because I think that this is mostly being instigated by Israel and its will, I don't think that it would be any different under a different administration. This is something they've wanted to do. You have to understand, Matt, this is something they wanted to do for so fucking long that it's not even funny. This is something they've wanted to do for so fucking long that it's kind of comical in a way. Excuse me. And when asked in the 60 Minutes interview that Kamala Harris did who our greatest international enemy was, she answered unequivocally Iran. So I just don't have any trust in the Harris administration. I just have none. And I don't have any trust in the Democrats, because the moderate Democrat position right now, which is the position that the party takes, they are a party of moderates and centrists right now. And the position that they take right now is no fucking conditions for aid to Israel. That's the position that Chuck Schumer takes, and he's the fucking minority leader. Exactly right, Matt. Netanyahu has been in every president's ear for 20 fucking years. People don't realize. I know I say that all the time, and I guess I need to add some more phrases into my lexicon. I don't know if a lot of people consciously think about how long Benjamin Netanyahu has had access to this level of political power in Israel and abroad, as demonstrated by his influence over presidents and their willingness to go to war for Israel. I do think they have been working towards getting a president who not only will go as far as they want, but who they have dirt on for a long time. I think that they found that in Trump, and that's why I think that this is escalating now. I think they wanted to have it escalate back in 2025, but they couldn't get it to escalate because I think Trump pulled the kibosh on it before anything more could happen. Because I think at that time, Trump genuinely still cared. I'm starting to believe that Trump does have dementia, or that his faculties are starting to fail him for some other reason or something. Maybe he's got Lewy body dementia. I don't fucking know, but there's something going on with the old Trump Meister, because he's fucking I think he genuinely on some level cared about the perception of him being anti-war in summer of last year. I don't think he gives a fuck about his public appearance at all now. I don't think he cares. I think he understands on some level. I think he's come to understand on some level over the last couple months that he has a core base of supporters who will go out and proselytize for him and defend his honor and make his case for him. Hey, Arya. Hello. Always good to see you in here. But I think he has got, what was I saying? What was I saying? Trump having, like, oh yeah, I think he doesn't care about his public image anymore. I think he realizes he's got a very small core group of Americans, maybe 30%, maybe like a third, a little less than a third, that like are not just for him, but that are so for him, they will go out there and proselytize and defend his every action and his every move, and they will be his little online and offline army and represent him and everything else. And I think he cares about just appealing to those people. I think there was a time, last couple months, where Trump on some level cared about what the like wishy-washy independent third of the country thought. I don't think he gives a fuck at all anymore. I don't think he gives a shit one. And I think that that has been kind of like a critical tipping point. Well, this is the second term. They're focusing now on getting the shit they want done and rigging it so some of the puppet of the far right in power looks don't matter. In a sense, does it really matter if Trump is arrested at the end of this? It'll be so tied off and legalities will die before it comes to an end. I wouldn't be so sure of that. Trump strikes me as one of those bastards that's going to live forever. Both of his parents lived into their 90s. That's a big marker for your health. Trump is fat. He's unhealthy. He doesn't eat well, but he's also the president of the United States. And even after, he will be an ex-president of the United States. Even if he is arrested, he will be placed on house arrest and allowed to stay in Camp David or some shit like that, under watch, under fucking lock and key, but he'll still be provided the top-notch medical care and all that. Guarantee you, this motherfucker will be raking leaves in his Mar-a-Lago estate for something to do when he's 94. Like, he ain't gonna die. I don't think so. Like, eventually on long enough time scale. But, you know, I'll put it this way. I think my son will probably be legally allowed to drink before Donald Trump dies. How old is he? 80? Yeah, I could see him living to 100. Like I said, he's a fucking president. No shot. I'm telling you, dude. I don't know if it's adrenochrome, but it's something. They got something. They got something that they're keeping these fucking dusty old zombies preserved with. They gotta. Just think about it. Nancy Pelosi should done been dead. How fuck's that bitch still kicking? Not saying anything. I'm not trying to threaten her life. I'm not trying to make a threat. YouTube satire. I'm just saying, like, she's an old, dried up old tusk. She's dust of a woman. You know? Like, I don't know what they're doing to these fucking old crazy people, but they're pumping them full of something to keep their asses alive. Well, they were not as stressed and yeah, unhealthy. Not as stressed. What makes you think Trump is stressed? Does Trump seem stressed? Trump seems low energy, but I think that's because he's old. Dude, fucking Henry Kissinger was low energy for 20 years before he ever died. Dick Cheney was low energy for fucking 10 years before he ever keeled over. I'm just saying, I don't know, man. He does have access to the best healthcare. That's what I'm saying. He's got access to the best healthcare, and I think he is less stressed than his parents were because his parents were like genuine business people. and like they were competing in a tough market at the time. It's not like the Trumps started out. It's not like they like Trump is hardly the richest dude who was ever involved in New York real estate. I don't even know who that would be. And probably not many other people do either, I would guess. But like Trump fucking like his family, came into an already highly developed real estate market and developed it further. And I think that probably came with a lot more stress to it, like managing the affairs of the business that had been set up for him largely by his father and his mother, in the case of Frank Trump. I think that was his name, wasn't it? Fred Trump. Look at Jimmy Carter, living dead. Yeah, literally. I mean, some of these old motherfuckers don't go through that slowdown shit. Like Bill and Hillary haven't done it yet, but like they will. And Trump's going through it now because he's finally getting to that stage of his life. And some people never do. Like Bernie Sanders. Although, you know what? Real talk though, Bernie Sanders is starting to slow down. I was just thinking about some of the videos he's been releasing recently. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. If he's doing it on purpose, then maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like he has started to slow down. But he could just be, playing it up for drama. He could just be like trying to space his words out for more effect. They're saying that Saudi Arabia might join the fight at some point. I wonder why Saudi Arabia would want Israel to take over the Middle East. So a bit confused on that. Oh, because Saudi Arabia is functionally a puppet state of the U.S. Not exactly. They're not exactly a client state of the U.S. That's not a good way to put it. They're a collaborationist state with the U.S. because they have they have been able to resist the kind of like violent like the violent tendencies and things that have happened in a lot of Middle Eastern countries that have kind of set them back repeatedly. Hasn't really happened to Saudi Arabia. They are a super well-developed country, fully economically modern, and as a result, they have deep ties to the West. And they can either have deep ties to the West and its long-standing markets and protect their existing investments, or risk all that and defend their geopolitical and religious neighbors and ally with ally with China and Russia harder. But then, like I said, they're going to lose out on a ton of money. So for Saudi Arabia, it's all about protecting the purse. For Saudi Arabia, and this is true of other Middle Eastern countries like Qatar and Oman that are also working with the U.S., for these countries, they understand on some level, their governments do, that working with the U.S., being allies with the U.S., even against your own local neighbors and religious brethren, can protect you against the local hegemon, which is Israel. And Israel is well armed with American military equipment and intelligence. They work hand in hand with us. And so none of these countries except Iran, Iran is the only country really that is both modern and developed and has effectively resisted U.S. interventionism for 50 years. And that's why they're such a consistent target of this shit. Well, I don't agree with genocide and war. Do you think there is any silver lining at the end of all this, whatever that will be? Will there be a greater peace and freedom in the Middle East? No. That's the sad thing about these interventionist schemes is anytime you go into a country and start meddling with it like this, you inevitably create more conflict than existed there in the first place. Right now, things are pretty bad in Iran. Even if we didn't intervene, a lot of people don't know it, but Iran's been going through a water crisis for a while. So, on top of now being shelled by Israel and the US, they're also dealing with a water crisis. Corruption and abuses of government power have been widespread throughout the entire time that the mullahs have been in control, but they have really spiraled out of fucking control and become really public and visible over the last 2, 3, 5 years. So there's already a lot of internal instability within that country. The country is currently ran and operated by a bunch of religious zealots who are organized into a very tight-knit and hardline and ideological framework, I guess you could call it, that enables that, like, the main state power of Iran to continue being theocratic in nature and, like, predisposed towards violence against Israel and the US, or at least Israel and our US bases in the Middle East. But there's also revolutionary faction. There's also like counter-revolutionary factions in Iran who want to re-implement the Shah. There are like there's a separatist movement in Iran, I believe. I might be getting that mixed up with Syria, but I hear coyotes close. Anyway, but there are also other like resistance movements in Iran, and any one of these could be vying for power against the IRGC. That internal instability can and probably will be exploited for a retaliatory attack, and like that is just going to lead to more violence in the form of like counter retaliatory attacks by Iran. So like no, this is not like at the end of all this, like what do you mean by the end of all this? Do you mean like when Iran and Israel finally like reduce each other's countries to ashes? Like if that's what you mean, if by the end of this you mean like when the entire Middle East is just like reduced to one foggy ruin, then sure. Yeah, I mean it's a little hard to not have peace if you don't have any people. But if by the end of this you mean whatever fake ass ceasefire is fucking called on before like inevitable instability in the country leads to further strikes or massive abuses of power by the government or whatever, like, no, nah, hasn't in the past. I see no reason why I would this time. We're gonna get their refugees, go figure. I mean, we're the ones causing all the fucking problems, so it's the humanitarian thing to do. I'm gonna displace an entire population. I think you owe it to them to take them in as refugees. Think of it as living restitution for bombing their civilian village. That's a cool Ouija board. Thank you. I appreciate that. What do you think about the Crusades? The modern ones or the old ones? You mean modern Christian evangelicism's like control of the Middle East is extrapolated by Israel and consolidated and guaranteed by Israel? Or are you talking about like the the old-timey papal crusades? Back when they were telling people to go recapture the Holy Land and shit. We talking about this attempt to capture the Holy Land or the previous attempt to capture the Holy Land? Both. Not a fan of either. I didn't think the Crusades were cool when it was the fucking when it was the papacy back in the, what was it, 1300s, 1200s, something like that. And I don't approve of it now in the form of Israel and American evangelicism's fucking rabid support for it because they think it's going to be where Jesus comes back. Stupidest reason ever to support a geopolitical goal, by the way. I do not understand that impulse. I mean, you have three religions claiming birthright over the same place. Yeah. That's another problem about it. I mean, like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Christianity and Judaism have learned to live together pretty well. I think Christianity and Judaism coexist pretty fucking peacefully at this point. But the problem is, leaving the Muslims aside for a minute, but just looking at it between the Christians and the Jews, the Christians who are like big fans of the Jews having control over Israel are really the biggest anti-Semites of all, if you think about it, because they are in support. The only reason why they support Israel is because they believe it's where, they believe the fight and the bloodshed required to formally establish Israel and protect it and have it maintained and all that, and the rituals that will be performed afterwards are going to bring on rapture. So in a sense, the Jews are really just the big great sacrifice to make all this get going so that they can finally get up to heaven. But as far as Islam goes, the competing claim there is a bit more of a hostile nature because, Islam is doctrinally critical of Judaism in a way Christianity is not. And Muhammad was specifically himself, not exactly an anti-Semite, if you know what I'm saying. Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the Middle East. It's gayer than NYC. Yeah, sure. That doesn't mean that everything Israel does is justified, though. That's like saying that the United States has San Francisco. That's liberal as fuck. How can you be critical of the United States when it's got San Francisco? It's like, well, because maybe I can compartmentalize and recognize a default or a defect here and a good thing there. Seems pretty simple to me. I dislike Islamist ideology as well, and Christians are so lost. I mean, I'm not a big fan of any religious identity, to be honest. That's super firmly proselytized about, but Honestly, the ones that bother me the most are the Abrahamic religions, because they don't just tell you that there's a God out there and like he cares about you in some vague sense or something like that. They specify a God with a personality that you somehow still can't know, and a, you know, set of quirks and ideals and all this shit that you can't plan around, but that you have to know certain parts about. Like, it's a personable God with specific qualities, none of which can be substantiated, and some of which are subject to immediate and sometimes unknowable change. In other words, it's a bullshit story. And people are, and it's a, but more importantly than it being a bullshit story, it's a bullshit story that purports to give moral weight to a set of very judgmental beliefs about human beings by giving the enforcers of morality a divine fallback, a divine justification for all of the horrible things that they believe in. Name something good about Israel and the US then. I only hear you say bad stuff. Okay. Well, I mean, it'll be easier for me to name it about the US than it will Israel, be honest with you. Just to be completely real with you, I'm a stupid American. I know everything about America and functionally nothing about the rest of the world. But I'll say this much. Early experiments with socialism in the form of kibbutz are very interesting to read about. And I think that it was pretty cool of Israel to like give that a go from the start. I do think that like communitarian and like socialistic kind of ways of living are way better than like individualistic, materialistic consumerism. As far as the US goes, I think we've got pretty abundant freedom of speech protections, even if those are kind of under attack right now. I think we've got a pretty robust justice system that keeps in check some of our wildest impulses and greater excesses. It's flawed for sure, but I think we've got courts that generally keep things running pretty much. We've got a pretty fair democracy as democracies go. It's not nearly as fair as it should be, and that's one of my criticisms, but we've got better representation, certainly, of the people's will here in America, at least when it comes to like the false choice that we do have. You know, we've like our votes are fucking counted and reflect on who gets to be president, where like that's not the case in Iran. You know, it's not the case in a lot of places all over the world. So, you know, +1 for us there. We're a flawed democracy. It's a practice. It's a pursuit. It's not something we've achieved. It's something we're going for, trying for, working at, making an effort on. Here's one. The United States has been a pioneer in cannabis legalization, allowing individual states within the U.S. to fully legalize and sell it recreationally at specific dispensaries that ensure your age before you're allowed back, to go get your cannabis. That's pretty fucking cool. Like, that is a higher degree of legalization and market than I think anywhere else on the planet has achieved, as far as I know. So that's pretty fucking dope. I'll tell you this much. America is the most picturesque, beautiful country on the planet. As a person who's been to most of the US, not Alaska, not Hawaii, and not a lot of states in the upper north that border Canada, but I've been all up and down the Northeast. I've been all over the East Coast. I've been all over the Midwest, the Deep South, Texas, and like the Southwest. And as a person who's been all over the US, the United States is the most butt fuckingly picture perfect country that you could ever ask for. Like, come here if you want to experience beauty in the flesh. It is so fucking pretty. Not every corner of the country is. There's plenty of shitholes. Plenty of shitholes. There's plenty of fucking ragged old swamps you wouldn't want to drive through if somebody paid you. But there are also lots of beautiful mountain vistas of all kinds of different types too. Like the Appalachians are a very old range, so they're way more flattened and hilly, and there is some rockiness to them in some places, but the peaks are less pronounced and more withered and worn. And it's a weird thing you don't get to see in a lot of other places in the world, because the Appalachians are one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet. And then you've got the Rocky Mountains, which are these very new mountains comparatively. And their peaks are so prominent and so sharp and so well defined. And honestly, there is a certain beauty to the Great Plains states. If you're in the right spot, there's a beauty to the rolling hills of Kansas with their solar, I'm sorry, not solar, but well, in some places solar, but with their wind farms and their big cornfields and shit, the rolling hills of Kansas can be beautiful from a certain vantage point. The rolling hills of northern Missouri can be beautiful from a certain vantage point. You have to put yourself in the right mindset, and you have to get up on a high enough hill. It's really the key. And if you're having trouble, light up a blunt. You'll feel it. You'll pick up what I'm putting down. Yeah, America made the internet. That's something we don't get credited for nearly enough. Although I think it's because most people kind of squarely agree that it's a loaded bag, right? It's a mixed bag, a loaded bag. I just combined idioms. Oh no, I'm like that bartender in Boondock Saints. Glass houses sink ships. Anyway, it's a mixed bag though, because the internet on the one hand it underlines or underlies, I don't know how you would put it, but it is the backbone to so much of our society, basically all of our society. The reason why you can run your card at the grocery store and your Cash App or your banking app will instantly update and instantly reflect a new balance and all that is because of the internet. The only reason why debit and credit cards even work in their current form and in the form they've worked for the last 25, 30 years is because of the internet. Before that, using a credit card was a very different thing. I'm going to go ahead and go, you guys. But, well, no. You know what? I'll stay on, but I got to go for a second. stay with you for a minute more. Holy shit. Yeah, I can stay with you guys for a couple minutes more, but then we gotta go. Yeah, dude. I think if I ever get to the point where I can, I got the equipment and everything, and maybe enough distance from where I actually live, I think I'm gonna do a fucking like documentary on this fucking place, because it is downright fascinating to me. Wish I could find that little poker stick that I used earlier. That'd be nice. Poker stick, where'd you go? Oh, poker stick. Fuck. Whatever, I've got another one in here. No, I don't. Oh, no. Did I throw away? Oh, retard. Oh, so stupid. I didn't put it in my stupid ass pocket, did I? No. Whatever. This is our new pokey stick. Dirty kids make do, goddammit. We don't sit around bitching. We make do. Hey, Xena. But yeah, I won't talk about it in specifics, but I can talk about it in general terms. Because the town I don't really live in a town, but the village or municipality or whatever that I live near, like, it has a fascinating history that I think is made more fascinating by the fact that it's so small and it's so recent. Like, large-scale settlement to this region really only started happening after the Civil War. Prior to that, it was like pretty fucking dispersed. And like until like the 1830s or something like that, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw, I believe, controlled most of Mississippi. And so like large-scale European settlement of Mississippi at all didn't really begin until like right before the Civil War. And the like there's regions of Mississippi that weren't settled until like during the Civil War, immediately before, or like in the years afterwards. And I just think it's really I cannot help but find it really fascinating, because like the town I live near is one of those towns was created right before the Civil War. Like basically just happened to be a train, you know. So a town popped up. And it's very interesting because like what's left of the town or village or whatever you would have called it is now way more spread out because we live in a car-based culture. But you can still see just a glimmer, and I do mean a bare glimmer, of how it used to look. Like there are like 4 buildings left from the original, what would have been the main drag. Literally, there are 4 buildings left. And if you didn't know any better or didn't really picture it in your mind's eye, you wouldn't even know that that's what it was. And now you drive by it, it's impossible to picture it in your mind. Not impossible, but it's damn hard. I'm all the way over in the UK. I've been to Utah and some of the East Coast, but the area you were in is still a mystery. I'd love to see you do a documentary in your perspective. Yeah, I think it would be really fun. It'd be really awesome for me personally because I would get to learn even more about the history of the area that I come from and that made me more or less. And I would also get to teach other people about this really obscure fact and this really obscure region of the South. Hey, that's my man. Part of me thinks I should do it about this one road. There's a road. You know how in Cars, like there's this like whole scene with James Taylor's Your Town or Our Town or whatever the song is called. There's this montage and the girl car, the hot girl car is talking about the how the road used to like how basically the main road through the area, it's like a Route 66 movies basically, and it's like the main road used to go through here, and then they bypassed it by like 2 miles or 10 miles or whatever it is, just, just to save 20 minutes of driving time basically. And I kind of want to do. I kind of want to make the framework of the documentary a journey down that road following its original layout. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go. I'll see you guys later. Bye.